Hey guys, Mynock here with Mynock's Den. Hope everyone is doing well. And in today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience in completing the Star Wars 1/72nd scale B-Wing Starfighter model kit by Bandai. And this is the limited edition that was released at San Diego Comic-Con earlier this year. At the time of recording of this video, I don't think they've released the standard edition yet, but the limited edition is readily available from retailers online. I got my kit off of Amazon for about $60, and last I checked a few days ago, they still had a few copies left. So if you're looking for one of these kits, you can get one on Amazon. So when you get your limited edition box, inside you'll find the model kit with all its parts, the decal cards, and you'll find two manuals. One is a 12-page assembly guide with a colored cover that is for the standard edition B-Wing, and the other one is a 4-page black and white insert that replaces some of the steps in the main assembly guide that is specific to the limited edition model kit, because there are a few minor differences between the two. So, what are the differences? From what I can tell by looking at the two sets of instructions, the differences are as follows. The standard edition B-Wing comes with a Sullustan pilot, whereas the limited edition comes with a human pilot. The second difference has to do with some of the paneling work on the outer hull of the two models. On the limited edition B-Wing, there are a few spots where the outer hull panels are removed to reveal the inner components of the ship, which differ from the standard edition, because on the standard edition, those panels are closed, but other panels are open. So minor stuff. And the last set of differences has to do with decals. The standard edition B-Wing decal and sticker cards seem to be more fleshed out, having more decals to put on your ship, whereas the limited edition is missing some of those. For instance, the red dots that go on the wings of the B-Wing are missing from the limited edition. There are a few minor decals as well, but those are less noticeable. Okay, so moving on to the model itself. I didn't do an unboxing video or document any of the steps that I took in completing this model the way I document my builds on my website. And the reason for that is because this was my very first model kit ever, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Having been a prop maker for the last few years, I've picked up some tricks, how to assemble things, and learned some airbrushing techniques and whatnot. But I've never worked with anything this small before with this much detail, so I had no idea how this thing was going to turn out. So I was gonna put this thing together, paint it, and if it looked good, then I was going to make a video in the end and consider documenting future model kit builds on my blog. You know, and if it didn't turn out, then I was going to throw it in the garbage and nobody has to know. But yeah, with this being my first model kit, I didn't know what I was in for. So I spent a lot of time researching first before finally developing enough courage to tackle the model. I belong to a few Facebook model making groups, and I would ask noobish questions like, do I need to prime the model before painting it? Or do I even need to paint it at all, considering that Bandai color matches their plastics to the reference material pretty well? So, you know, should I bother painting and maybe just go straight for weathering after assembly? The next question I had was, okay, if I'm going to prime and paint the model, do I assemble it first and then prime and paint? Or do I prime and paint all the individual pieces separately and then assemble the model kit? So yeah, I had lots of questions and I received lots of answers from members of our wonderful community, which led to me to successfully build this very first model kit. Okay, so I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to quickly run through the completion process and talk a little bit about the products that I use. So after considering the advice of some of the members in the Facebook groups I mentioned, I decided to prime and paint most of the parts of the model kit separately because I felt that would give me greater control. For the primer, I used Vallejo Surface Primer with an airbrush thinner, and I obviously applied this with an airbrush. I did a few coats before I was satisfied. After the primer dried, I grouped most of the parts by color scheme and painted them separately using a line of Tamiya flat colors. So the colors that I used in this project were dark gray, flat red, flat blue, flat white, flat black, red brown, and flat flesh. For the main body color, for the main hull color, I mixed flat white, flat flesh, and dark gray. I have no idea what ratio I used. I just kind of played with it until it looked right. And then for the blue accent parts on the wings, I used that custom color that I created and added a few drops of flat blue until it looked just right. Then I painted the guns, the cockpit, the gray area behind the cockpit, and the engines using a custom gray color that I mixed up, after which I assembled the model completely. For masking during airbrushing, I used Tamiya masking tape, which is available in various widths. It's simply the best product that I've used for getting those crisp paint lines without overspray. After the model was assembled, I sealed the paint job with Tamiya's TS13 clear coat, which comes in the spray can. And then after this dried, I applied all the decals using the Microsol and Microset solutions. After the decals were applied, I once again clear coated the model and then proceeded to do the weathering. Now this is where I ran into a bit of an issue. To dirty up the hull plating and get those panel lines to pop, I used Tamiya's black panel line accent color. But what I didn't realize is that how much this stuff hates the type of plastic that Bandai uses in his kits. So if you get any of this stuff on an exposed plastic part or part that hasn't been protected by a clear coat or paint, it will eat through that plastic. And I found this out the hard way. I applied a little too much wash near the folded wings, like near the hinges. And in about 3 minutes time, the wings literally fell off the B-wing. It was horrifying. It was just sitting there on the desk. And the next thing I know, the wings just plopped off one by one. I was so pissed. So for the next 2 hours, I sat there putting the little splintered pieces together, gluing them together. So the wings on this model no longer fold. I had to glue them in place to make it work. And with some clever weathering, I was able to cover up the crack lines. But anyways, so if you're using this stuff with Bandai kits, be very, very careful that you don't oversaturate them and you don't get them into the joints where there is exposed plastic. So after applying this xenomorph acid and wiping the excess off with mineral spirits, I let the model dry and then did the rest of the weathering using Tamiya's Weathering Master powders. Once I was done, I added a few little marks here and there with a thin paintbrush, painted the pilot by hand, and then sprayed the entire model down with Tamiya's TS80 flat spray can clear coat. And that was it. That pretty much completed the model. So when I start working on my next kit, which will be the Bandai Y-Wing model kit that I have coming in the mail, things will be a little bit easier in terms of figuring out how to assemble things and paint things and weather things and which products to use and not to use. And that in itself is going to be a very good prep work for the ultimate boss fight, which will be me trying to tackle the Bandai 1/72nd scale perfect grade Millennium Falcon that I have sitting in the box. So that's it for me for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the bell for notifications. I will be coming out with a lot more videos in the near future. Once again, thanks a lot and have a great one, guys.